The Holy Bible, the King James Version. The Book of Psalms, Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish.
Hey. Hello, welcome to Toronto Bible Study. Hi everyone, how are you? God bless. Here's Paul. Paul, how are you, sir? God bless you. Nice to see you.
Hello, my friend. Can you hear me okay?
It's a bit quiet. I don't know.
Okay, let me turn it around. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds better. Yeah.
And how
How
about
you
that?
doing? Oh yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's solid.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
All right. So how you doing, man? Long time no
Uh,
see, bro.
yeah, long time. Yeah. Doing all right. Yeah. Are we on right now?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, sorry.
We're live.
It's okay.
That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're live.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, man. I should have invited you on for a little bit early. We could talk for a bit, but my bad.
Oh no worries.
Is that okay? How you doing?
That's yeah.
How's life at school? How's school and everything, man? I mean, work's hard for you, but school for me.
Yeah. It's very quiet. I because my courses are virtual.
Mm,
Um, it's not much going on until the midterm tests come in for me to grade. I mean, I have weekly Q&A, kind of open office hour type things on Zoom, but nobody comes, so there's
yeah.
really not much going on. Yeah.
Wow, that sucks, man. But I guess that's the way it is now, eh? Like university now is very much online, very less with the open lectures in the halls and stuff, right? Or how do you think? What do you think about it?
I'm so out of touch, but all of my courses went online during lockdown, and then they just stayed there. I think
Mm,
the School of Continuing Education had been intending to um, pivot to the online mode,
yeah.
so lockdown gave them
Mm,
the opportunity to just do that and keep it there. So
yeah. Let me just say hi to all my people. Hey everyone, how are you? Let's see who we got here. Frank, God bless, brother. Thanks for joining. Christian, hello, how are you? Hermano, Miguel, Hermano, Altata, what's up, bro? Hey, Sabo. Hey, Russ. Yeah, they're just chilling. Anyway, so they'll probably have some questions as we get into it, but yeah, that's sad. That's kind of sad, man. Like that the way university's gone now. I don't know. But how about like normal classes? They're still going on, I know, but is it really like does it feel the same or is it different now?
I wonder. I'm so out of touch, with the campus life. I With my situation, I don't ever go into campus. I could live
Mm,
in Thailand or something. Like I don't need to be. It's
wow.
completely virtualized, and need to
Mm,
go to campus a little more frequently just to go to the library. But for
mm.
whatever reason, I don't do that much now. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very out of touch with
No, no,
university.
it's
Yeah.
though that's part of the reason. Like, why are you out of touch? Because it doesn't have that atmosphere anymore. You know, or maybe I'm wrong, but like the way when I walk around there nowadays, it feels different. Maybe it's just me, but it does feel different. And the doors are all locked with the computer
Mhm.
keys. Now you can't even get in.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. It feels very it feels different to me. And it could be just that I'm different now, but I don't know.
Well, TMU is a very high percentage of the students are commuting in. Like I don't think that many students live on campus in residence or anything. So a lot of students are coming in for class and they're getting back on the TTC and going home. I think there's also like being right there downtown. I get these security alerts every day. There's some arrest or something on campus or around campus. There's someone who's like exposed themselves to someone inside the student center or mugged them or whatever. Like it's just so. Yeah, the locked doors are probably part of that. Like they just had to increase security measures. They're having still have too many security incidents.
Well, you know what? The whole thing of like how they changed the I mean the whole harm reduction thing of handing out drugs to, or handing out like not drugs but like crack pipes and things like that to users, right? In the vicinity of the university right there, right? It leads to that whole security problem right away. I mean, I just feel like the whole environment there. Remember last time we were walking around there, how the whole environment just changed? It's so different now. Like the whole atmosphere and everything, man. It's scary now, you know? If I was like a young woman or something, I would feel like weird. There's all these homeless people there. There's all these like people on drugs and stuff. Like I'm not saying they're not that dangerous, but it does feel a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that drug treatment center on the south end of campus, and I haven't been by in months. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a active area, and you're it's yeah. If I yeah, it's something to be aware of and probably a little bit cautious about for sure. If I was a parent and my kids were, starting at TMU, and I was taking them for a campus tour and I saw that, I'd definitely say, be careful around here.
Yeah.
I don't want to disparage people who are having problems with addiction, but
of course,
just the reality of, being safe and sane around that.
Remember that guy Jay? That guy Jay who used to hold the door open at the Tim Hortons.
The guy who
I saw him the other day.
Looked like Jesus a little bit.
Yeah, he looks like Jesus. Yeah. He's been there for years, right? He's been there since I went there with you, when you were teaching there.
Yeah,
almost 12 years ago, and he's always is holding the door there, right? So he's been through it all. He's seen the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Still there, eh?
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, I mean, not as much as he used to be. Like he's kind of back and forth. I guess he has some other places he goes, but back in those days, he used to be there every day. Nowadays, it's so crowded with other homeless people. There's a literal, practically like a tent city or a little like mini tent city there by right at the corner. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like, so for him, it's like the environment has changed a lot, and he doesn't feel the same way as he did before. But he still goes, still there, still surviving. So
he's been there as long as I can remember. I started at Ryerson in 2005. I think, I don't know if he was there back then, but at some point I was aware of this guy always holding the door open very gallantly at the Timmy's.
Yeah.
He did seem to go through some rough patches. Like there were phases, where his look changed, like see the life was maybe taking a bit of a toll on him. Last I saw him, but.
Yeah. Wow. Last time I saw him, though, you know what? Last time I saw him, he looked pretty good, though, actually. So it's up and down. I get this. Huh?
That's nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
I shouldn't speak. I look really rough compared to 2005.
I can barely see you now. You look good, man. I can really see the lights on.
It's right behind me, just the way I set up my desk. I'm not really set up here for streaming or influencing. So.
Yeah. That's okay.
I make music in here. I've got it soundproofed and so on, pretty good. But
nice.
Not for any videos.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you know what? Okay, so you want to get to these questions, man? Because that'll be an interesting conversation. I think, like,
Yeah.
for everyone who's watching, ask Paul about some questions some big questions. You know, that what reason actually is, whether logic is something we invented or we discovered, and whether we can really trust our minds to know truth and things like that. So, what does revelation really mean? And so, it's kind of things that touch between philosophy and religion. And so, and it's something that he thinks about quite a bit because he is a kind of a philosopher of religion and what he teaches at least at Ryerson. So I hope you'll enjoy this. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to address them. Okay. What do you think? Is that okay, Paul?
For sure, yeah. I'd just say though that I really like I said to you in email. I don't feel like I'm an expert at all in a lot of
Nah.
these questions. I mean, I don't know if I've thought too deeply about some of these
Okay.
questions. So we'll just have a conversation. And see
Yeah. It's in the
where we end.
conversation. That's okay. I think, yeah, maybe you don't think about it like deeply analytically, because you don't really write about it that much, these topics, but I feel like we discuss them in a way sometimes here and there.
Oh yeah.
They come up in our discussions, right? So I feel like we will have something to say anyway. Anyway, so the first one was, does reason itself need a foundation beyond human minds and social practices, or can it ultimately explain itself? That was the first question. What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm. A
I mean, I
foundation
think
beyond. Yeah,
in
go ahead.
principle, it doesn't need anything outside of it. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, laws of logic, I think, are somewhat mind independent, and any mind
Okay.
powerful enough can grasp them and utilize them. You can imagine God being like a guarantor. So, my view about reason and about truth and the relation to God is just God isn't required for those things to exist. Truth and
Hmm.
reason can exist without God. But if God is perfect and our source and our goal, then if we get ourselves into the right relationship with God, we're going to be healthier in all sorts of ways. We're going to be better functioning, and that includes our
Hmm.
minds. So it's not that there's no connection between the life of the mind and our relationship to God. I just don't think there's a necessary connection. Yeah, how about you? I mean, I know you're the short answer,
Hmm.
but
Yeah. The short answer, yeah, it's like, yeah, the short answer, but I would say to you, like, like if reason is just something that it's grounding itself, then isn't that kind of circular? Like, isn't that like saying that it doesn't that it arrives at truth? If reason is trying to find truth, but reason is itself the source of truth, then what is it doing? You know what I mean? So I feel like it needs to have something beyond it that actually provides the truth thing. And reason is like, or let me put it this way. So let's say you have an argument and it's valid. Then if the premises are true, then the conclusion is true. A syllogism or something, right? But how do you know that they're true? Like, it's not, the reason's not going to get you there. It's like you have to. That's the thing that requires something, I think, beyond reason. What do you think?
so you would accept that the logic of the syllogism can be grasped without God, but you're wondering if the how we would know that the premises themselves are true in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're conceding a lot already to the non God position, whatever you want to call the mind independent position, in
Hmm.
that you're allowing that the laws of logic can be grasped and applied with confidence, even without knowledge of God or without the existence of God.
Well, now I would argue not without the existence of God, because I would say that only with God are those things grounded, so that they don't have any. There's no reason to think that the laws of logic have any truth finding ability without a God, like because we would just think like what is it, unless there's some kind of thing that's beyond logic itself that grounds them, right? Then it's like why do we think that logic is finding truth for us? Why should we think that?
I mean, aren't some of these logical moves just obviously correct? Like, I don't know if we call them self-justifying or self-evident, but if A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, then A is bigger than C.
C, yeah.
I mean, I don't see how.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so.
But that's true. That's true. That's the part's true. But then it's like, so okay. First of all, it's like, how do you know that A is bigger than B? Firstly, and then two, we might just have that in our mind that that's true because we like evolved that way. So we evolved in such a way that we think the laws of logic work because that's the thing that allows us to survive. But there's no reason to necessarily assume that they track truth in the way we think, Oh, there's Jeffrey. Jeff Pye. Can you see the comments? You can click on it. I think if you click do you see at the side, like there's the comments, there's like
me
private comments, and then there's like comments, I think. I don't know if you can see on your screen. I'm not sure. Maybe you won't see it.
I don't see. I've got like a full screen here. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Oh, comments. Oh, there we go. I see the comments now.
Yeah.
For Star Wars. That's right. Jedi. Yeah, Jedi. Yeah.
What's up, Jeff? What's up? Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So we were saying, what were we saying? Oh yeah, I was saying that yes. So the truth, like what we think of as reason, might actually be just survivability or something like that, or coherence or something like that, rather than actually the truth, because we wouldn't have any real reason to think that is true without a God. That would be my take on it,
I guess on the one hand, I agree that almost anything is subject to skeptical scenarios, whether based in evolution of our cognition, or we can use like Descartes' demon, or there's some way to drive a wedge between the belief and our confidence in it, justified confidence in it. And in principle, I do get that God being by definition this necessary, absolute, ultimate entity could be where a lot of bucks stop, and so I understand, I guess, I don't want to say the temptation of appealing to God as our guarantor for a lot of things, but just one thought to keep us going that popped into my mind is, I mean, even if God exists, and we know that God exists, I don't know if we should then be super confident in our own reasoning abilities. I mean, that could be arrogant of us to presume we know what God's plan is, and to presume that God would make us cognitively perfect. I mean, clearly God hasn't made us cognitively perfect, hasn't made us perfect
no, definitely.
in all sorts of ways, and so It
Mm.
could be part of God's plan to that we start in the mud and then bloom into the lotus of divinity and fellowship with God, and we're far from that still. So, like what it, even if we know absolutely that there's a God and that all will be well, I'm not sure we could know without further justification that we can trust our minds any more than we can trust them based on evolution. I mean, I mean, Alvin Plantinga, I know in his argument against evolutionary naturalism, I think he does. I think the whole premise of that attack is that naturalism is in trouble in a way that theism is not, and the reason for that is a theist can trust their cognitive faculties because they can trust that they were made by God, and I think that's a bit of a leap. But
yeah, that's a bit of a leap. But wait, what he's saying is that, I guess what he's saying is that if we assume, I mean, I think he's the one who talks about, like, I think Plantinga is the one that talked about how if an animal hears rustling in the bushes and he just runs, right? Then whether that rustling is actually a predator or not, the fact that they have that instinct to run is going to lead them to survive. It's going to greatly increase their survivability. Or just as an example, right? This is a possible reason why like natural selection may not lead to truth tracking as a thing, right? Rather it might lead to survivability, and survivability is not necessarily the same as truth tracking. Whereas if we assume that God made us and made us with rational minds, that we can maybe not perfectly, but we understand the laws. We can ascertain the laws of logic, and we can also kind of use them in a rational way by God's design, that we can then trust our faculties of reason in a way that the evolutionists can. Or what do you think about that?
I agree with the first part. That if our minds are purely the product of godless evolution, then yeah, the Darwinian logic there is we are selected for survival, or not even survival, for reproduction, and and whatever, our mind, like our heart and like our calf muscles, will have evolved to maximize reproduction. And I mean, not in a direct way necessarily, not in an absolutely direct way. I mean, in the way that our sperm have evolved directly to reproduce ourselves genetically. But our kneecaps are a bit more indirectly connected to reproduction. But by Darwinian logic, it's all explained under this selective pressure for reproducibility. So in that sense, our mind is in principle untrustworthy, but by that story, because it hasn't been designed to tell the truth. It's been designed to help us spread ourselves, and it's more than just in theory. We know in just common examples that, like the example you gave, that it's good to have a lot of false positives, right? Because they'll save our life. Better to run away 20 times even when nothing's happening than to not run away that one time it is a predator. And so, our minds are compromised for sure. I just don't know that the theistic story will necessarily be much better, right? Well, yeah, I mean, God wants us to get to the truth, of course.
Yeah, that's just the assumptions lead us to think that we can trust our mind. So we have a reason to put our faith in that. It's not that we have any proof one way or the other any better than the evolutionists, but that we have a reason to put our faith in that, whereas the evolutionist doesn't. That's the argument, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell all kinds of stories about what God is and what God's plan is. One story I like
Oh, you
is,
know what? Oh, sorry. You know what? Jeffrey said to turn up your volume. He asked that. Hey,
oh, is that right?
typical. What's up, brother? Yeah, a little
Let
bit,
me
I
see if I
guess.
can adjust the mic here a little bit too. Yeah. How's that? Is that better?
Sounds better.
Is that better? Yeah. Turn that
Hope so. Let us know, Jeff.
up. Yeah. Yeah. He's our audio engineer tonight. We is that better, Jeff?
We want to get into your specifications. Just the audio engineer for sure, right?
Okay. Well, that
He
it's
knows that
closer to
stuff.
my mouth now. It should be better.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so stories about God. So a little more. Right? That's it. I'm at max. I'm at 10 gain. And what's going on here? One, two, two,
Mm.
two. I'm right. The mic's right here. I'm at 10 gain. I wonder what's going on.
What my thing is it? Is it my thing? Hmm.
Oh, that's better. Thanks. Okay, great. Okay, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Um, okay, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I didn't.
Thanks, Jeff.
So stories about God. Okay. Well, here's one story.
Mm.
The greatest gift God can give us is for us to know what it's like to be God. You know?
Okay.
I mean, if being God is great, what greater gift could you give to a creature than to let them experience that? And this need not be sacrilegious from a theistic point of view. It need not be explained in terms of us becoming gods, if that sounds sacrilegious. You can talk about, I mean, the idea of heaven and communion with God is sharing God's glory, and that has to include some sense of some being in God's presence gives us some richer sense of what it's like to be God, right? And
Yeah, for sure.
there you are, just like being in the presence of Mike gives us a better sense of what it's like to be Mike than just reading a sentence about Mike, demographic data. And anyway, of course, the problem is we are creatures. We are contingent. We were created, unlike God, who's necessary and eternal. So the trick for God, the engineering trick for God, is how to allow us to experience this kind of sense of aseity or necessity and absoluteness, even though we have these very compromised origins. One way for us to do it, to get a kind of simulacrum of necessity, would be to become self-made men. Meaning, of course, God made us, ultimately. I mean, that's the real backstory, origin story. But once we're fallen in this world, it's as if we weren't made by God. I mean, for all we know, we're not made by God. That's what a lot of people would say down here in the fog of war. And so we gotta become awesome, good and awesome, and take care of our business. Even though we're cut off from God in so many ways, I mean, when we're plead to God, it feels like we're being ignored often, and doesn't mean God doesn't exist. It just means there's some real gulf there. And if that's part of God's plan, it could be that God wants us to figure it out for ourselves and do it for ourselves, because God knows that in the end, that will be the only thing that will be the thing which will give us the greatest satisfaction. We'll never be God, but we can experience a growth to a kind of godhood, which we earn. Which we earn. It's not just given to us. And in a funny way, I mean, let's say we become gods. I mean, I know that's not a theistically kosher thought, but just to make the example colorful, let's say we become gods. That's something even God can't do. God can't become a God.
God.
God's just always been a God. And so, thinking about the problem of creation. Why would God even create a world, given that a world is not God? It's imperfect. One reason I like it, this is just speculate. It's just like I say, a story. Like I'm just imagining why God would create a world. One story I like is that it allows something to happen that can't happen if there's just God, which is things become God or godlike, right? They get to that level of excellence, even though they don't begin there. You know, it's like being born a rich kid. I don't want to call God like a rich kid, you know, but he's like a rich kid in that he's just always had it.
Rich, yeah.
And that's different from a self-made entrepreneur, someone who begins in poverty with nothing and then becomes rich. You know, in a way, the second is more impressive. They're more praiseworthy. I'm not saying we'll be more praiseworthy than God when we become God. I'm just saying that God wants something to happen in existence that can't happen if he just exists on his own. And that's that these attributes are earned through the hard scrabble of life without any direct communication and direct help. You know, I mean, I'm not denying that God at points might intervene in history to help and intercede through prayer and respond to petitions. God might do some of that, but clearly God doesn't do a ton of that, right? I mean, people pray all the time to God, and these prayers aren't answered in the way people, you know, and like we're living the hard life down here, and God must want that to some extent. And the question is why. And so I've just proposed a kind of just an answer, a speculative answer.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Interesting. There's a line in 2 Corinthians 8:9 that Jesus, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for our sakes he became poor, that ye through his poverty might be rich. So the idea is that he became a human and suffered with us so that we could, through his suffering, join him in heaven, right? That's the idea. So what you're saying is interesting in that you're touching on some very, very core elements of the Christian faith without actually going there, you know, without actually, because you're saying that this is something God is doing without revealing himself, without actually giving us this revelation that he wants us to become rich, quote unquote, right? But whereas a Christian would say that is what Jesus did, you know?
Could be that.
Interesting.
Yeah. It could be that revelation is something we initiate a little bit. Like it at least in that it comes to us when we're ready for it. It can't be received unless we're receptive to it, and unless we could perceive it, right? I mean, you can't show the northern lights to something that doesn't have eyes, and God can't reveal until we are seeking that and ready for it in some way. And you could push that idea further and suggest that maybe revelation is just, it's us moving towards that perfect thing, and then the reality of it flickering at us, right? It's like the light at the end of the tunnel that's starting to flicker and show to us because we're getting there. And in that sense, it isn't God cheating and throwing a helpline down. It's we're pushing through. We're pushing. We're digging the channel, and maybe God's doing a little digging from his side too. But it's also that as we're starting to push through to daylight, that's the revelation. It feels like assistance. I know, but the Christology is that God sends Jesus intentionally to help us out.
But you're right. You're right in the notes is that like the way the story's told, in my opinion, in the book of John, for instance, like people are receiving, like the revelation has come in a sense that God has revealed himself in Christ, right? But that people individually don't actually don't actually come to that revelation unless God draws them. All right. So the idea is that God reveals himself, and then individually people are sort of given the testimony. That is, you may hear about Jesus. I may tell you the story of Jesus, and you hear it. And some people will choose to like harden their hearts, as it says, and they will not be, then God will not draw those people. Other people, they receive the testimony, as it says, and God will then draw those people, and then they'll come to actually see the revelation, see who Christ is, you know? So I don't know. It's weird how like you're so close to a lot of core theological, like Christian theological ideas, even though you're avoiding that actual revelation, you know? Interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not positive that Jesus isn't the Son of God. I just, yeah, I am a little skeptical that he's the one and that this is the way, you know. But there's a lot that's very appealing in that narrative, and it does seem pretty special. So I don't think it's insane to think maybe he really is. Maybe this really is the center point of history, and the entry point, the main highway of revelation and into our world. I don't think that's an insane view or anything. It's yeah.
Well, to take it back to what you were saying about breaking through ourself, kind of finding the light or digging through to the light ourself, as opposed to it being revealed, right? So, because in a Christian view, truth is given to us, right? And in your view, then we have to dig through and find it, or is it kind of constructed, or is it like something that we discover? At least it's something that's actually existing already, right? That we discover. Or what do you think?
I would say it already exists. You know, short answer. And by the way, I don't necessarily think that there's no one digging from the other side, pushing through to us. I like I said, it was just one story. I'm not sure what's going on actually.
Yeah,
I suspect there are angels and entities out there who help us. You know, just like we can help creatures who don't understand as much about our world as we do, but we can help them, angel-like. And I think we're not on the top of the great chain of being. We're not. It's not just us and then God. I think there's a lot in between us and God, powers and entities, both good and evil. I believe that. But exactly how, I mean, whether there is a single supreme being, I'm not sure. I could just as easily accept a dualistic view, and I don't necessarily mean light and evil, light and dark. It could be more like a marriage, you know, like the idea of a god and a consort, or yin and yang, like twin forces that are in some great dance. And we, you know, I wonder how much of our monistic tendencies, monotheistic monistic tendencies, are partly politically imprinted, living in hierarchical political systems since the dawn of civilization. You know, we
well, look at why are there so few? Well, there was other civilizations before monotheism, like the Romans, or you know,
that's true,
or the Chinese.
That's true, but there's been this tendency to monotheism, and now it's dominant. And civilization
is there really? Is there? Wait. You know what? I mean, this is going to be kind of taking us off the path of what I was wanting to talk about, but that's okay because it's interesting. But you're saying there's a tendency towards monotheism because that's often suggested, right? That the humans evolved from like animism to shamanism to polytheism to finally monotheism, as if monotheism is like the most advanced form of religion. Is that what you're suggesting, or what are you trying to say?
No, I'm not saying it actually is the most advanced. I just mean as a historical fact, there's been this tendency.
Or that,
Yeah,
yeah. Or so
yeah.
are you suggesting then that humans have just sort of evolved towards that norm of monotheism, but that it wasn't just like, or that's what you're saying, right? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be partly politically motivated, meaning there's political pressure from the top down to embrace a religious system that entrains our mind to think of power accumulating at the top at a very narrow point. If we think about
Mm,
things cosmically that way, we'll be more likely to accept things politically that way, and that is the
mm.
political order.
But
So
then
even
why then would, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, even in pre-monotheistic systems, there was often a hierarchy of gods. There was often like a supreme being like Zeus, or like so. There was still a pyramid like point, apex
Mm-hmm.
of in the great variety of beings, and so politically that could do the job. But and even in monotheism, there's still God is supreme, but there are lots of entities, archangels and whatnot, who are quite powerful beneath God and above us. But
Well, what I would say is the
yeah.
difference is like with the Greeks, for instance, they would have Zeus. Yeah, it's true, but there's always like Zeus is a created being himself.
Mhm.
Zeus is also like kind of within nature. He's not like beyond nature. He's sort of subject to certain
Mhm.
powers of nature himself. He could even die. I think like there's that thought in their minds.
Mhm.
Whereas with the monotheistic God, it's like this idea of ultimate truth and ultimateness.
Same thing happened. I think I don't know a lot of Roman history, but I mean, the king became this divine emperor too over the course of Hey,
Mm-hmm.
hey, he was just the best warrior who would
Mm-hmm.
consistently perform well in these campaigns, and now he's a god, I guess, and he's
Mm-hmm.
you know there at the altar that we kneel before now. How did that happen in the space of 600 years or whatever? Well, maybe there was a similar parallel trajectory in religion, that we make this one being. I mean, the Judeo-Christian God too, historically, began, like in our cultural consciousness, as a being like Zeus, who had a father, had a lineage. If you go back into the Near Eastern cult, Yahweh was the son of El, right? And had a consort named Asherah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, well, I mean that's a theory. I don't really adopt that theory of the origin of the Bible, but I get what you're saying. I understand that there was like, so from my perspective, those cults were just like syncretism
mm,
that was not part of the actual like cult, of the Hebrew God. You know what I mean?
but you don't
So
need
that.
to. You don't need to believe that. Meaning to be theistically correct, whatever the historical fact is, you don't need
Mm,
to believe that. You could still tell a theism friendly story of how Yahweh, son of El and husband of Asherah, became the ultimate cosmic God. It doesn't mean that
I
he's a
see.
fraud. It just means that there really is one ultimate cosmic God, and the Jewish or proto-Jewish people groped towards that being by using a local deity
Mm,
as their conceptual kind of anchoring,
right,
and then
right.
they
I see.
got to the ultimate God through the idea of this very powerful tribal deity. So it just as a history of cultural consciousness of God, it begins God, the ultimate God who really exists, begins in
Mm,
cultural consciousness as a local tribal God who, like Zeus, has an origin and is bound by nature and is very
mhm,
powerful, but not omni powerful,
mhm,
and so on. But then through that, we abstract the ultimate deity, and we
mhm,
abstract correctly, maybe.
mhm.
um,
Sure, yeah. I get what you're saying. Anyway, I don't want to get off the topic too much, but because we do have a bunch of questions to get through here, but I don't know if we're gonna get through them all. But the next one was: are the laws of logic something we discover about reality, or something we need to invent? I mean, I think you'll say probably or what do you think?
yeah, laws of logic seem almost pre-natural to me. Um, they just seem to be true in all possible worlds. They would have been true before there was a cosmos. They would have been true in the black void, God or no God. These are just they're deep, deep, deep laws. We call them logical laws. We mean deeper than contingent nature and quite independent. So I tend to think that a well-functioning mind could arrive at them with total justified certainty. No, I agree that Descartes' demon or something like that we can always imagine a skeptical scenario that can put a bit of wedge of doubt between us and the belief. But as much as you can ask for, I think we can get some confidence that our mind has hit on some of these laws of logic. But they just don't get you that much, you know. Okay, so A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, and we know that A is bigger than C, but are there any A's? Are there any B's? Are there any C's? How big are they actually? To do that, you need to get your pants dirty and pull out the measuring tape and get out in the world and make mistakes. Yeah.
Okay, but if they're okay, so let's say they are discovered, they're actual things. Are they like I mean, if they're discovered, then they're necessary. Or would you say they're necessary?
I think so. Yeah. Those laws of logic are necessary. Yeah. They can't stop being true, and they won't stop being true even if the mountains fall into the sea. Just
And they're mind independent. Okay. So like math, right? So what is logic then ontologically? Like what is it actually in the universe? Is it a feature of the universe like gravity? Or is it an abstract truth like numbers? Or is it something else?
More like an abstract truth. Yeah. But yeah, good question. What is that? What a mystery
exactly.
here. Yeah. But
and then is there any explanation for it? Or what sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, do we have an explanation for why is logic? Why is logic? Why does it exist?
It does seem because these laws are necessary. That it can't not exist. It's just and the idea is when you grasp these laws, you see that they're necessary. You see that I get it. Okay, that has to be true. That's not something that just happens to be true. Yeah.
They have to be true, yes. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So it's necessary, yeah, so they must be true. Okay, but then why are they like normative or binding on us? You know what I mean? Why is it like we ought to reason this way? We ought to reason this way and not the other way,
I mean, practical concerns can do a lot of work here. Just there's immense pressure to abide by these laws to some extent, because even if we are selected for reproduction and not truth-telling, the fact is, having a good map of the world is very important to surviving. And so we need to be connected to reality. We need to make good inferences. So there's that immense pressure, call it natural pressure, and then it trickles down into social pressure and psychological pressure to get right with logic. So there's that, so a lot of the power, that force of that ought, when we're talking about epistemic norms, a lot of that is practical force. But I think there's an independent, it's like a conditional, if you want the truth, if you want to track reality, then you should think according to the following rules. But hey, if you don't want the truth, then think whatever you want, that's one way of thinking about that ought, that it's conditional. If you want a more unconditional ought, akin to a moral ought,
I guess there isn't.
Yeah. it's interesting.
From your perspective, right? Yeah, I guess not. But then it's like, if there were a situation where violating the laws of logic were just more beneficial to you, you know, or more pragmatic or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where truth is just inconvenient or not practical or not helpful to your interests,
Mm-hmm.
then you might think that, oh, okay, we should just violate it
Mm-hmm.
because that would be the best thing for me in this situation, right? But we generally don't. We generally hold truth to be a higher standard than that. We just hold it like as if it's something valuable in and of itself, you know? Do you think so or not? I mean,
tend to think of it that
even
way.
when you were like kind of defending truth before, right? You were saying that it is just practical to map reality, to map reality accurately. But that is a pragmatic approach, right? Rather than like an actual just truth for its own sake approach, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, might be that truth for its own sake isn't that great. I mean, like maybe it should have. I mean, there are all kinds of truths that are useless. We can do arithmetic till we're blue in the face. What's 3,722 times 4,448? Who cares? Unless
Mm-hmm.
it's on some ledger or it's
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That's the thing. Those
statistic.
ledgers. That's the thing. Those things. It's not any specific one. Maybe it doesn't matter that much, but it's like the rules of it, the way it's done properly, correctly. We know that if we don't do it correctly, we're gonna mess up that ledger. We're gonna mess up that bridge construction. We're gonna mess up something that's valuable to us, right? And not only that, but it seems like there's something even more important about truth than that, like more important than the practical, you know?
That sense of more, it's vague. I feel it, and I feel it. It is kind of like a lot of precious things. It's a little vague. It's got a glow around it, like gold,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be the mark of some kind of what's the word? Bit of an illusion, meaning
Mm-hmm.
part of that glow is the glow of a hallucination, meaning it's a bit of a projection. I mean, the value of truth is just that practical global value we talked about. I mean, it's immense. It's the reality principle. We're here because we've abided by it to some extent for 5 billion years by the Darwinian account, right? It's like life has
No,
respected.
I thought we established that Darwinianism doesn't necessarily track truth either, right? The thing is like what you're saying, right? You're saying, right, is if it's just practical, if that's all it is, right? Then it's practical for the strong, not practical for everyone, right? That's the difference between my view, which is that there is some like higher transcendence kind of reason why we should be tracking truth. Whereas if you say it's just practical, then the strong decide what's practical. That would be my answer to that. What do you think?
Well, if you want to overturn the strong, if you want to overthrow the system, you need a good map also. So, I mean, the truth is valuable for everyone. And even in the Darwinian picture, I mean, life needs a good map of its environment to navigate that environment successfully. It needs to have roughly correct beliefs about its social position and to navigate its social world correctly, right? I mean, a lot of illusion can be very useful too, but there's got to be a good, pretty healthy dose of mapping and reality tracking. And that's, I mean, these.
Well, the thing is, when you say like if you want to overturn the strong, you have to know the truth, right? Then you're suggesting that. I mean, I'm not suggesting we should overturn the strong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that truth is more valuable than power, or truth shouldn't be decided by the powerful, But if you say that, oh, well, we just need the truth because we need it to overthrow the strong, that's just another version of might makes right. If the revolutionary becomes, if the revolutionary can defeat the strong, then he's the one that decides what is true, But I'm just saying that it's like I think we should have some kind of standard above our relations for those things, for truth and stuff like that, right? But what do you think?
I think we should too. No, I'm playing the defender now of just a kind of pragmatic conception of truth and its value, and I'm not even sure if that's what I think, but I can go with that a little bit tonight. It makes for a sparkling conversation, But like I said, I haven't thought deeply enough about a lot of stuff to really have a well worked out. Like, what do I think? I don't know. How does it connect to my other beliefs? But okay, as if I'm the devil's advocate here, the advocate for pragmatic notions of truth, at least my kind of amateurish version of that. I just think truth is mapping is such a basic, useful function for almost any position you're in. That it's going to be valuable for everybody, whatever their position in the system. And so to that extent, it transcends political power, meaning truth will be valuable to the guy at the top and truth will be valuable to the people at the bottom too. Yeah, if you can manipulate people into your story about reality, then you can get them to act according to that story, to play a role in that drama. And you can design those roles scripted so they'll act a way that serves your interests. It's propaganda. That's
the problem. That's the thing. That's the thing about propaganda. Like, they'll let you know the truth. They'll let you define the truth. And there's like the Overton window, right? Like, so they'll let you talk about truth and debate it within just their parameters, so that you can debate the truth of the correct way to build a bridge. They want you to debate that, but they don't want you to debate the really whether their system of government is valid and helpful to you. You know what I mean? So the reason, like, the idea that, okay, well, truth is valuable, therefore it's we're just necessarily going to always track truth in all our spheres of life, right? Is they'll allow you to track truth in certain spheres, and in other spheres they'll use propaganda and other methods to control it. You know what I mean?
That's a very old story too. That precedes civilizational propaganda, right? I mean, mimicry in nature, where life forms try to hide or fool each other. It's like propaganda, and that there's a kind of, you want the other party to lack access to the truth in this case, right? I want you to think I'm a twig, not an insect you can eat. So I'm going to look like a twig while you pass by, and that's like propaganda. So definitely there are, in this great game of life, there are all kinds of agents who would prefer that you know less truth than you do, and who would prefer that they know more. They have the best map. The best map is so valuable that anyone self-interested would want to have the best map, and they'd want others to lack a map. So that's part of what's going on. For sure. It's good to be aware of that. Again, from a purely pragmatic conception of the value of truth, we could explain why it would be good to get your hands on the map, whatever position you are in the system, So because
no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is, like, if we just decide that, I mean, even if you're the underclass trying to fight for power, I'm not trying to necessarily relate it to power relations, but it's just the fact that if truth is just pragmatic, that's one area where we can see that power relations will create this problem where truth is not really going to, or our sort of societal truth finding means are not going to necessarily act the way we want them to, because people in power are going to use them for their own ends, right?
Sure.
And you're right that if somebody who's not in power wanted to try to get power, they would need the truth. But if their goal is to get power, then when they get power, then they're going to use that power to control the truth means for everyone else as well. But I'm saying that, and that's maybe that's just part of how society works. But like, I'm just saying that if our only if we ourselves personally hold truth to be only the practical, then that's what it amounts to. It's just a battle of it's just a war of all against all again, you know? Whereas if we have this higher standard of truth it's transcendent that we're trying to reach for, right? Then we have something that's actually valuable to us. Or what do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the practical problem of liars and propaganda and power struggle, that's a reality for everybody, theistic or non-theistic. And you're asking, is there a way out of this? You know, and God would be that light, at, you know, that we could
Mm,
dig that channel towards and break through to, and which would stream into our world and change things. That could happen. That would be wonderful. But we could also, I mean, there are different kinds of different politics. You know, they're not everyone who grabs the ring of power will then act in a self-aggrandizing way. There are degrees of self-aggrandizement, and there are people who are pretty benevolent, and if they had power, they try to distribute it. You know, they're
mm,
who'd there are societies that can be a little more collectivist or just a little more coherent and less individualistic, and where things can be shared with less risk of someone who receives that good using it to further themselves, you know, way above the pack. And so truth could be, yeah, there are different ways things could play out practically on the ground in politics, God or no God. You know, human
mm,
nature, I think, has, and social nature are, I don't want to say totally malleable, but I think there's a real spectrum of orders we could end up in. You know, we're
yeah.
almost in a pretty bad one right now. It feels hellish in some
Hmm.
respects, but it doesn't have to be this bad. I don't think.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah. I don't know. We kind of went off the path again. I love talking to you, man. We're always all over the place, but it's like I had I had this plan for our conversation that completely fell apart now. But it's really good because we answer interesting things here that I never thought we'd talk about. That's cool, you know.
Oh,
But the other,
I'm always losing the plot in conversations. So
yeah, that's okay though. That's good. That's how you think, and that's like I like it. I like it because that's how you get ideas that are kind of new and interesting rather than just always following a plan. But my next question was about human cognition and being the product of survival instincts. But we already kind of talked about this, right? But that idea, maybe we can talk about it some more. What's the why should we ground our confidence in human cognition as the path to truth if it's based on survival instincts, right? Or you think we've exhausted that already, or what do you think?
yeah, maybe. Yeah. What's the next question? I mean, not exhausted it,
Yeah,
but we
we
could
kind of
just
went
wrap
over
it up.
it. We did cover it, right? So, all right. Would you agree that reason can assess a claim of revelation, even if it couldn't have generated that knowledge on its own?
I can think of an example of kind of revelatory event that not only can be assessed by reason, but must be assessed by reason.
Mm,
Um, I mean, how do we distinguish divine revelation from just natural information? How do you distinguish a omen or a sign from an angelic sign from just a coincidence? Well, you need
mm,
to reason about it to some extent. I mean, whether you sit down with a calculator or not, when you say that wasn't just a coincidence, you're making
mm.
a reasonable judgment.
Yeah.
You're saying that kind of thing isn't likely to happen, and you're doing that based on an inference from past experience. So you're using any kind of I think omen or divines like the divine signs when they're discerned. People have that power. It's partly a rational power.
Mm,
So how do you tell revelation from non-revelation? How do you tell true prophets from false prophets? I think reason is one of the tools we need to use.
For sure. For sure. Like, so that's interesting, because we would say that the resurrection, for instance, is this thing that can be examined, a historical event
Mhm.
that can be examined using reason, that for the evidence for it, etc., and to come to a reasonable conclusion that it happened. You know, I guess what I'm just trying to say, that we're not the Christian is not against reason, right? We want to use reason to think about these things. We want non-Christians to use reason to think about them and to come to the same conclusions we do, you know?
Mhm.
Well, what do you think revelation is? Like, what do you think how would you describe revelation? Like,
Mm.
I mean,
So,
go ahead.
information coming down to us,
Okay.
from a higher realm, divine information.
Okay,
And
well, do you think, all right, go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead.
Do you think we can distinguish between revelations such as Jesus's resurrection or the Bible, and like other forms of revelation around the world, like other holy texts, or um I don't know, shamanism or what have you?
You can use reason to make judgments about the sources. Yeah, you have to.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
Okay. So do you think, so then what do you think, they're all just equally, or what do you think, is it actual information, or is it like just a meaning, kind of an interpretation, or what do you think revelation is? Like actual information actually being revealed to us, or is it like giving us this sort of symbol, or um or a mythic kind of thing, or something like that? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I would use the word information in just the broadest or deepest sense to include, you know, symbolic meaning and mythic relations and that kind of thing. It could be something very specific too, like play the following lottery number next week, and but it could also be just uh, revelation of some deep archetypal order or dyad
Mhm.
or duty, some deep ethical imperative.
Mhm. So then it's making claims, like truth claims, that we can evaluate, that can be proven true or false. Would you agree? Revelation is doing this?
I wonder. Uh, when we talk about revelation, we're probably talking about a huge class of
Mhm.
communications, and some of those, based on my very limited experience, I would say some of those communications they seem like they're very, very difficult to prove. Like they're very difficult to explain to other people. So you can start
Mhm.
there. You can say, well, why is this so difficult to explain? What is it? Just I'm doing a bad job explaining it to somebody else?
Mhm.
And then you think and you say, I'm not sure I'm explaining it to myself all that well either. I've arrived at this belief. It's a very
Mhm.
deep belief now that guides my life, but exact exactly how I arrived at it, like all the steps in that argument, so to speak, all the premises,
Mhm.
like it's a long story, and
Right.
it almost takes in my whole life. And this is the way we'd speak about it if we could really self-reflect clearly. And it's like at some point I have to ask, is that then just a revelatory belief that's very, very, very difficult to work out in argument form and rationally justify, or are we actually, is that difference in degree of difficulty actually becoming a difference in kind, where it's something outside of proof now? It's something, it's like we like to call it a lived truth and that kind of thing. You know, at some point, I remember when I was having like really powerful string of, call them synchronicities or whatever. Like just I call them like messaging. It's like it's very powerful. It's like there's information coming at you from somewhere that doesn't seem human, and
Right.
and I learned, it's like when you have a cool dream, you tell the person in the breakfast nook, hey, and at some point you realize, as an experienced dreamer, it's very hard to communicate to someone else what was actually interesting about it. The dream was interesting. It was more interesting than, a lost David Lynch movie, but it's very difficult to describe to someone what made
Yeah.
it so compelling. And it's like, the whole, oh, you had to be there. We say, oh, you had to be there to really get it. At some point I realized, no, you had to be me. if you were to actually, if I could really explain the synchronicity to you so that you would understand it in the way I do, you really have to be me, meaning you have to have my whole personal nexus of experience, because the synchronicity is it's like this key, million tooth key that just fit into my own nexus of experience. And like the backstory I'd have to give you before I actually tell you the synchronicity is like takes in so many nodes from my life. That's what made the message so impressive, right? It's like, wow, it's like God knows me intimately, like better than I do, in a way. Like he was seeing these patterns that I don't even see, and it's like, but to explain that to somebody else, it's like, so it's like my rational mind does feel justified in some of these worldviews, like, but it's also, at some point you stop kind of reasoning about it and trying to, like, reasoning is partly a social calling, how to explain yourself to others. And when you stop, when you sort of give up on that part of it a little bit, then your own worldview becomes a little less rational. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but yeah, I guess short answer, maybe all of these revelatory beliefs are amenable to reasoning, but in practice, for me, with my very limited experience of like revelatory at least adjacent experience, a lot of it's very, very difficult to reason about, even to yourself. Like at some point it just becomes, it's like, but I had limited kind of prophetic experience before, and then I was like, well, this stuff's just really hard. It's hard to explain to someone how I came to that prophetic view, or like that specific belief, like, and then I read a book about dream prophecy, and this guy had a much more scientific approach to it, and he did a very good job explaining his own like prophetic dreams. Like he was a meticulous dream journaler, and he was just very meticulous and scientific about it. And I felt a little ashamed when I read this book. It's like he's actually doing this thing which I thought was maybe impossible. It's like, no, you can't explain it. It takes a lot of work though. You have
Did he prove anything that could be like not explained naturally or anything like that?
He actually has I would call it a broadly naturalistic explanation of prophecy, but not fully
I see.
but yeah, prophecy. It's information from the future that's arriving at us. So it's non-natural in the sense that it doesn't easily fit within a current scientific conception. There's a bit of stretching, like he invokes some of the new physics and neuroscience.
But what I mean is, did he show something that was like that we couldn't explain? Like, did he show something that we couldn't explain naturally according to our current understanding of physics and stuff? Like, you know what I mean? Where he has to resort to this other naturalistic view, but which is outside of modern physics,
I mean, he thinks that modern physics can account for it. I mean, there's a lot of debate about
I see.
information from the future in modern physics, right? I mean, like there's this block universe conception of the universe, according to which, in some sense, the past, present, and future all exist. In this kind of space-time block. And
sure, yeah.
And so, in principle, you could have information arrive from the future to the present. It doesn't seem to normally happen that way, except through our own kind of inductive guesswork. But a lot of the deep laws of physics are They're not like unidirectional. They're agnostic on forward backward relations in time. They're time reversible, I guess. And, so there are some ways you can use a broad, a broadly scientific picture to fit prophecy, which is information arriving at us from the future. To a
Interesting.
worldview. Yeah. So and more generally, I do. This maybe takes us on to a slightly different topic or broader topic, but I do tend to think that a lot of things which people assume are evidence of divinity could be explained naturalistically, including things like resurrection. And I mean, the universe is a mysterious place, and it might be very, very old. The universe might be quite designed, though not by God. It might just be itself the outcome of a long process of cosmic natural selection, and could be we've arrived at in the vast history of time, the vast history of reality. We've arrived at a universe which is already a little bit loaded for our surprises and fun. It's like we're in a story that we've worked out over many iterations of the universe or something, and so there are all kinds of it's like in a video game. It's like there are all kinds of Easter eggs and all kinds of interesting power-ups awaiting us. We designed it that way, and so
How could you like disprove that view? How could you? Is there anything that could come along that could show that view to be wrong? That's the thing. Like, what do you think?
I mean, a lot of important, interesting views have that falsification problem, right? Where we're talking about big picture stuff.
Well, that's why I think the Christian view is different in the sense that we're saying that this historical event happened and it can be proven through normal means of studying history, normal methods, and even the Old Testament things, like for example, the Sinai, right? There's like millions of people there. They witnessed this thing. They wrote it down, and it kept coming down through an amazingly accurate textual tradition through those people. That's their argument, right? Now, of course, there are different claims about the origin of the Bible, right? But that's our claim, that there's this historical events that we can actually track through normal kind of natural means and prove these things happen, and that these things are these events happen that we can track through natural means that are themselves supernatural. That's the idea of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I just again, a resurrection, even if it happens, I'm not sure it's evidence that there's a single God. There are all
Oh
kinds
no, yeah. It wouldn't be by itself. By itself, it wouldn't be. No, maybe not. But it would certainly put it on the board. It would put it on the board that it just might be that this Bible story is true. If this person actually rose from the dead, it's on the board. That okay, we should check this out. We should definitely try to find out the basis of it. Right? That would be the idea.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, hard to dispute that. Yeah, if you wanted to leave a vivid calling card that would get people curious to call back, a gold embossed calling card. That's it's a good way to emboss it for sure. God might work that way. When God needs to address the world through a loudspeaker, God will pick the perfect time and place in history to set off a bomb, a truth bomb. And
that's
the
right.
X spot could be the intersection of the crucifix. That's the X spot of God's truth bomb. I like that story. I like that idea. It's very appealing.
Yeah.
And might be true, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was just saying, like, whereas the synchronicity or actually even other religions, like I would say that they're not like they don't have that kind of. They don't claim to be based entirely on this historical thing, on this historical fact that's actually grounded in like real historical methodology and stuff. I understand that many historians would doubt the resurrection, but for example, the vast majority of historians would agree that Jesus was crucified and that the disciples actually believed he was risen. So that puts you very close to something like a valid historical claim. And then we could then talk about the other evidence of why I believe the resurrection itself. But like, that's something I don't think other religions really have,
Miracle working is a very common part of shamanic powers. Very common part of a lot of it's a very old story in part of our tribe. It's long been part of our tribe that there are beings with special access to the entities and the divinities, and that extraordinary things happen around them. I think this is a very old common story.
But they don't prove it like the way the Christian story proves it. Even in the Old Testament, for instance, like when you were talking about seeing the future. So we would suggest that, look, Isaiah predicted that they would go to Babylon, and Daniel predicted that Alexander's empire was split up into 4 groups and all this stuff hundreds of years before. And what scholars now will try to claim is that, well, those documents were written later. The last 27 chapters of Isaiah were written hundreds of years later, because that would just be impossible that he could predict that, right? Whereas the Christian would say, no, that he wrote them, Isaiah wrote those, Daniel wrote those, and they predicted those things, and it's obviously supernatural, And so, or Jesus predicted the destruction of the temple. That's how we explain these things, right? So that's what we're saying. Like, we have this access to historically verifiable supernatural predictions of the future and other things like that, right? Which are just possible to explain other than by some kind of revelation by God. That's the idea.
No, but I don't think they are impossible to explain without God. We covered that. But
well, yeah, but in order to do, like, yeah, you're right. Of course, you could kind of reach for some kind of theory of physics that allows for that, right? But that would itself be an unfalsifiable theory of physics, which we don't really have any access to. We can't. No one. Like, it's not like a widespread understanding of physics that could be the thing. That could be possible to predict the future like that or something like that. Or what do you think? Am I going too far?
My sense is that there are lots of examples of prophecy, and I mean, from common experience of people's prophetic dreams to I mean, all kinds of contemporary accounts of extraordinary events and prophetic events. I mean, if you dip into the contemporary Indian devotional literature on various gurus and beings, these stories are a dime a dozen, and these are from fairly reputable, articulate, educated witnesses. So
it's sort of like the Catholics when they say that their saints could do miracles or they could do things. Like, we would deny all those things, but we would just say that, like, those things aren't really well respected by normal historians or whatever. They don't consider those to be valid examples of supernatural things, right? Whereas, and again, of course, they don't think the Bible is either, but it's just because they happen to deny the dating of those documents, or they'll say, well, Jesus, the story was probably the disciples just, they were a cult or something, or they were crazy or something like that. They had like a mass delusion or something. They'll say something like that. They can't just like deny them, like the way they would deny those those miracles of the Indians, like Sai Baba does some kind of miracle or something, right? Like they would generally, most people would deny those things ever happened, Or what do you think? Am I going too far?
I don't think they're being very good historians if they apply a double standard. And to take the Sai Baba literature, it's pretty vast, and there are lots of accounts there of extraordinary feats from, if you want Western educated observers, you've got that. If you want them in published form, you've got that. I mean, there might be good reasons to be skeptical of these, but if, as a historian, you're looking at these multiple contemporary documents from still living witnesses, on paper that sounds quite superior to the Gospels as a source of information. So I'm not sure what people would think about it, but a trained historian, I think. You've got to look at the source. You've got to look at the material case by case. But in the way we're describing the contrast here, the contemporary literature would be better, not worse.
Contemporary literature about Sai Baba's miracles? I don't know. I feel like I know for a fact that they're often like self-contradictory. Like witnesses don't say often the same things and stuff like that. And yes, there is some slight contradictions in the gospel accounts, so contradictions, quote unquote. I don't think they are contradictions, but there is those claims, But they're like quite contradictory, a lot of the stories. And even, for example, even it's the same with those Catholic stories of miracles, such as like like the Lady of Guadalupe and those type of visions, right? That people would have. There's many people witnessing it, but they have different retellings, So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe we should move on to the next one.
I had a look at the Sai Baba literature. More recently, I read a work of collection of stories about Neem Karoli Baba, who was Ram Dass's guru, and again, very interesting examples of prophetic information there. And do I believe every example of it? No. With a lot of them, I don't know quite what to think. My overall gestalt kind of impression from a lot of that devotional literature is there's something going on here. There's some signal here. It's not all noise and not all lies and confusion and rumor spreading. There's signal, and so yeah. I'm not. So for me, the examples of prophecy in the Bible would not make me a Christian. I just see examples of prophecy much more widely in human experience, including deep, ancient kind of shamanic. I think it's an old human power, and it manifests in the Christian cult probably too. But there might be other reasons. That plus 50 other things might combine to make the Christian story compelling as the central story. But prophecy in itself is not going to be, for me, that impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I do feel like, okay, is that like, so what they'll do, the thing is about the Sai Baba stuff is that he'll predict, or I don't know if he predicted the future, but it's like there's these little like local things that happen, right? Whereas if Daniel's talking about something that's going to happen hundreds of years in the future. The Greeks are going to conquer the Persians, and then the Greek Empire, then the Greek king is going to die, and then his empire is going to split into four different empires, and that's exactly what happened hundreds of years before. That's pretty crazy.
Isn't that part of the problem? Hundreds of years before.
What?
It gives you a long window in which the prophecy should be fulfilled, unless he said it will.
No.
At this date.
Well, no, he's literally saying like, okay, it's gonna be. He predicted like after the Babylonians, it would be the Persians. After the Persians, it would be the Greeks, and then this other empire, which we identify it as Rome, but it's very much the description he gave is very Roman. And then other things would be like, Isaiah literally, he named Cyrus. He named him, he named Cyrus like 150 years before Cyrus conquered the Babylonians. So that type of thing, or Jesus said they'll destroy this temple and they'll push down every block. Every block they'll push down off of the temple, right? And that's exactly what happened. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I don't know.
I mean, I had a Sai Baba prophetic experience. It was very powerful in my life, and it
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and
But
again,
personal though, right? But again, personal, not public. That's the thing. Well, go ahead. Tell me about it. It's okay. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
public. Yeah, in that I didn't write the prophecy down before it was fulfilled, in a public way. So yeah, but I'm just saying so it's maybe useless for you and your audience, but I can just say like, so you know where I'm coming from. For me, there's no doubt about prophecy. Happens. It's happened to me, and it's happened to people I know, and I don't doubt that at all. I see it occurring much more widely than a lot of people think in human experience, and so I don't doubt Isaiah's prophecies. Like on paper, I'd have to look at them in detail. It's the way you described it sounds interesting and worth a look, but there's also a lot of vagueness in prophetic language like that, and when exact dates and so on aren't given, things can happen eventually in history that will fit it. But the way you've described it does sound like there are some specifics there that would make it less manipulable or less able to fit multiple historical narratives. So, but yeah,
what if it's possible that like there is some kind of personal level prophecy that's possible through the I mean, I hate to say it, I'm sorry I'm gonna say it, but for the Christian point of view, it's like those things are like somehow from some kind of false god type of thing, right? Where so maybe they can make those kind of we do believe that there are powers in the world, right? That are kind of rule the world, that are just like not that are given this reign by God and held limited by him, so that maybe they could actually do those kind of things, like to a certain extent, but they couldn't do the public kind of thing that Isaiah does or that Daniel did, I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. Anyway, should we move on to the next question? What do you think?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. What do we got here? What would a worldview need to account for in order to make reason, morality, and meaning genuinely trustworthy?
I think we covered that.
We covered that. What do we say about that?
We talked about it's about whether these things can be independent of God or not. That was the first
right
40 minutes of our conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So my point was that it has to, that it kind of, yeah, we did talk about that quite a bit. You're right. That's true. But so, okay. So what's your account for this then? What were you saying about this? Yeah, like how would a naturalistic view account for this? Or are you not being naturalistic, but you're saying that you're kind of saying that in that you're saying you don't need God for it, right? So how would it do that?
For reason and truth and meaning and these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, these things are mysterious ultimately. I mean, meaning, like what makes meaning happen? It could be that for meaning to happen, reality must at its heart be a conscious, ultimate being without limits or something. I don't know. That could be how it all works out. But
yeah,
meaning is kind of mysterious, but just like consciousness is, and
well, it's mysterious for you, or it's not for you, but mysterious for the naturalist or for somebody who's trying to explain it without God, right?
Well, how's meaning suddenly unmysterious if there's a God? I mean, there's still mystery there. Just like
No, oh no, because then it's like no, it's like yeah, it might be a mystery. What is the meaning? What is it? Right? That's the mystery for us. But
that there is meaning.
the origin of it, yeah, like the
Uh,
basis of it, right? Like that's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Whereas you're I mean, not you, but the naturalist struggles to find some kind of a universal meaning or objective meaning for anything, you know?
I would think that once you've got consciousness, you've got salience. You know, once you've got consciousness that has the power to focus attention, and you've got conscious in a world, you know, on a game map where there are goals, then you've got focus trained on things that are salient or relevant for survival or reproduction or whatever. And I think it's a few steps, but just steps from salience to meaning. It's like what we think of as meaning in this, you know, this more linguistic, highly this rich psychological kind of meaning that we live with and employ. Yeah, that I think that has its origins for the naturalist in salience. You know, the observation or the training of attention on features of the environment that are relevant to the game.
Right. So you're saying,
Consciousness.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would just. So then, you know, maybe you know, meaning leads to the question of consciousness. How is their consciousness? And
Oh yeah, that was what I was gonna say. But then I was still even push back on your idea that salience. I mean, for anyone who's for the listeners, salience is saying that like, what are you saying by that? You're saying that certain things are significant or something, and then so that when we kind of map out what those are, then we can arrive at some kind of thing that we can call meaning. Is that what you're getting at?
well,
Because I would
yeah,
say that even that's kind of like well, even if that's true, like because that would be like you're mapping out something that's again practical, and it wouldn't lead to any kind of ultimate meaning. That would be my answer to that. You know, what do you think?
true. I mean, it's hard to get to ultimates maybe from a naturalist perspective, but
Mm.
um, you know, you could have. I mean, you can have consciousness even if there's not ultimate consciousness, and you can have meaning even if there's not ultimate meaning, and you can do math, arithmetic, even if there's no highest number. Um,
Mm.
so, uh, I mean, it could be that. I mean, consciousness is a problem, of course. Like to explain consciousness from a
Yeah,
really
that's
naturalist
the other
perspective,
problem. Yeah, that's the
but
other problem. Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem. Period. There's something a little mysterious about consciousness. Of course, if reality is grounded in a necessary conscious being, whom we call God,
Mm.
in that sense, consciousness is not a mystery. It's the basis of reality. But
Mm.
I mean, consciousness could be the basis of reality in a more naturalistic worldview too. I mean, it could just be that awareness is as fundamental as energy or something like awareness and energy, just like we talk about the space-time continuum, might be that's actually like a matter energy consciousness continuum that just awareness
Mm.
is primordial. um, and
Okay.
yeah
But then you would ask, then the question would be like, why is the material world even necessary? If that were the case, or like, what if it was the case that consciousness is itself some kind of ultimate reality, right? Then why does the material world exist? Why are our minds seem to be kind of like linked to our material reality? You know?
I mean it could be that there is no distinct material reality, that it all it's just a very rich precise dream or something
Mm.
like that, you know, that this is awareness has spun this, and it's worked at what we call the laws of nature. And the hard, when we talk about hard matter, you know, that you can knock the wood you can knock on, we're talking about regularities, and regularities could be realized just through consistent dreaming. You know, if you dream
Mm.
consistently, um, it could look like a world. that you can walk around in. Just like
But
very
then
yeah.
isn't that just solipsism? Like, what? Why would I think that you're something else, like you even exist at that point, or whatever? You know what I mean? Why is there like, why does everything? Why does the world like seem to actually exist? You know? Or what do
I
you
mean,
think?
solipsism is a problem, period, theism or not. It is hard to get outside of your own consciousness and prove the existence of something outside of it. But
Mm,
I, I mean, if the world is a dream, it could be a group dream, or it could be that the beings are so richly rendered they have interiority. Each of them has interiority. Like if you really richly render your own dream world when you dream, it could be that the characters in your dream are sort of conscious because you've endowed
Oh
them.
yeah. I believe that, but then that would still be solipsism. You know, that's what I'm saying. I think solipsism. I reject solipsism on the basis that it's just like completely impossible to explain or to even like have a meaningful life or meaningful interactions with anyone if we believe that, you know. But if we say that, oh well, maybe I think if you're saying what I think you're saying is that the whole world could be just dreamed down, and even other people have interiority in our dream world. Well, then that would just be solipsism, right? Wouldn't it? Or what do you think?
I wouldn't call it solipsism if there are distinct points of consciousness in that world, with their own interiority. I think of solipsism as being, there's just one conscious being, and that's it. And um, any kind of sociality is just an illusion. There's no real sociality. But in the dream world, I'm imagining there's real social interaction between different conscious entities. The whole thing is being dreamed, maybe mutually, but it's social. The whole world is social. It's very richly social.
Oh,
And it
okay,
matters,
okay.
whether it's a dream or not. Like in the end, it doesn't matter whether it's a dream. It matters morally, meaning the things you do matter. Like if I'm capable of suffering, then whether it's a dream or not, I can suffer in it. My dream self can suffer in the dream, right? And if you intentionally in the dream cause me to suffer in the dream, that's not just dream immorality. You're actually doing something immoral. You're intentionally
Yeah.
causing someone else suffering. If we take that view of morality,
But
and
what I would say, or go ahead.
yeah, so it would. It's just like things can matter even if it turns out it was just a test, right? Like sometimes those candid camera things, or what do they call them? Just for laughs, gags. They can be a little bit awkward because, okay, it's just a gag. It was just a setup. It's not really a police officer, but you think it is a police officer, and the way you're behaving with them is indicative of your personal choices and your character. And so, okay, haha, it was just a joke. Surprise, surprise, you're on camera. Yeah, but it was real in the sense that I acted like an asshole, and it showed the test had truth in it. It was truth revealing. It showed that I'm an asshole, and so the world could be a dream, but still totally matter morally.
But what you're doing there is like you're saying you're kind of taking the problem of consciousness. It's a problem that we can't explain why people are conscious. Or why consciousness is a thing. Like why isn't it just a different brain states? Why do we seem to have like our own thoughts about our own subjective experience? Why does that exist? Why is that a thing, right? You're reversing it to say, okay, well maybe it's all just subjective experience, and even the subjective experience is linked where it's all just consciousness. Well, then you're just kind of reversing it, so that then we would have a problem of why is there a physical reality, or what the problem of physicality? Why is this even a thing? You know what I mean? It's just like you're just taking the problem and saying, okay, well maybe this is the thing. Well, then we have to explain this side of it. What do you think?
Well, when we're getting into the origin stories of everything, I mean, we're going to have problems theistically too. Notoriously, is problem. It's its own version, right? Every big story we tell about the origins of things is going to have some problems. Doesn't mean they're not true. It just means for our measly minds, we're not going to be able to iron out all the wrinkles. I mean, why would
Well,
God?
no, I would say because we would say that's a different question, but we would say with the problem of consciousness that God explains that because he gave us a mind and a consciousness because we have souls and he wants us to have a material life for some reason. We're not sure about that part, but we could discuss that. But that would be explanation for the problem of consciousness, the so-called problem of consciousness. Whereas what I'm saying to you is that because you can't explain the problem of consciousness, you're just reversing it. That's what I'm saying to you. I'm not trying to like be argumentative, but that's what I'm saying is happening here. What do you think?
Would God ask ever, why is there a God? I know there's a God.
What do
That's not
you
my
ask?
problem. But why is it that of all the ways reality could be, starting with two ways, God or no God, we're in the reality where there's a God apparently, and it's me.
Mm.
Yippee!
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
God ask that question? Could God
I don't know.
ask,
I don't think he does.
why
I
am
don't
I
think he
conscious?
can.
Yeah. Could God
I don't
ask?
think he can. I don't think he
Yeah.
can.
But what about consciousness? Could God say, consciousness is very mysterious? I mean, I have it and it's infinite, but
Mm.
there it is. What is it? I think consciousness is a bit of a mystery, period, even if you're at the origin point of it. Um,
For
um,
God?
yeah. I mean, I don't want
Well,
to presume to say that even God couldn't give a good answer here. My sense is that the mystery of consciousness, we're hoping it's something that cashes out in some ultimate being, but I think consciousness might be a little bit intrinsically mysterious. I think a lot of things might be intrinsically mysterious, and God's omniscience. God might be omniscient, but omniscient means knowing all that can be known logically, right? Meaning all that can be known is known, and there might be
right,
something that can't be known.
right.
And God doesn't know those things, and we shouldn't demand that God knows those things. That those things are impossible to know. And there could be a lot of things. Maybe some of the most important things. Maybe all of the most important things are like that. That they're just in their very nature a little mysterious. And God has this Apollonian kind of side of clarity and light and logic and true propositions. But God could also have this, the more numinous mysterium side where at the core there's just some deep mystery which is not even cashed out in God's own consciousness. I mean, God persists with it. God has,
Yeah,
in
I
other
think
words,
you're right.
thinking of omniscience is a very kind of nerdy way of thinking about this broader capacity of having the right kind of mind. What we really want God is we want God to have the right kind of mind. Now, omniscience is one way of trying to tag that thing, but right kind of mind could just mean having the appropriate relationship to things, cognitively. And it could be that some things are intrinsically mysterious and God has the appropriate relation to those things, which is God inheres in those mysteries and lives with them and expresses them and dances with them, but doesn't know them propositionally, right? It's doesn't and consciousness is a good candidate for my measly mind. To my measly mind, consciousness is a good candidate for that kind of thing that just
But
its very nature not cash out in clarity ever.
yeah, no, you're right. But I think it's a different problem where we're discussing at the human level, we're discussing this problem of consciousness, which the materialists have a problem with, which the theists do not, right? Whereas you're discussing the problem of the origin of God and whether God knows it or something like, which I understand. I agree. It may be possible that there's no answer to the question of why does God exist or why God is conscious. Those questions cannot be answered. It's just like that's why he just says I am. He's just self-existent. That's just like this. It's almost like calling it a brute fact, like the brute fact of his existence. You know what I mean? Almost like, but I don't think it's a brute fact in the sense of what we call a brute fact. But it's one of those things that it doesn't. It's the thing. It's beyond explanation, or it's the final terminus of explanation. There's no explanation beyond him. But whereas when we say the problem of consciousness as human beings on Earth, it's a problem of explanation for the naturalists because they don't want to resort to him as the determinist of explanation. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I wonder how much the problem of consciousness for naturalism is especially acute for an older kind of billiards ball style of particle physics, where, I mean, if we think of the universe as just a bunch of tiny billiard balls bouncing around in space time, yeah, it's hard to see how any combination of that would give rise to consciousness. There's a gulf there. There's a jump, quantum leap. But my sense is that in physics, there's at least one path that physics has been moving in the 20th century. I associate it with the name John Wheeler. He's a physicist who's had some a bit of a lineage, and in that kind of Wheeler lineage of physics, there's a continuity between the physical and the informational, at least, right? So that physics, like the stuff, I don't want to say reduces to, but it's continuous with information. Like if you really zoom in, so to speak, on the atom, you end up with something a bit more informational than material. It's a little weird.
Is that kind of like Schrodinger's equation, or is that totally different?
I wonder. I mean, the information.
So not Schrodinger's equation, but the Schrodinger the cat thing. Remember that thing? I'm sorry, not to
No, it's a good question. My knowledge of physics is very scanty. Just it's from reading trickle down books over the years and half understanding what I'm reading. But in this Wheeler kind of tradition, yeah, they would. I mean, a lot of it comes out of quantum physics, like the demand to explain quantum weirdness, right? There's this quantum world is the atom actually turns out to be weirder than a billiard ball. Like we all agree on that. And then the informationalists, I think I'm getting this basically right. The informationalists would say the weirdness is better explained if we treat the atom as ultimately an informational entity. Wheeler's adage was it from bit. It from bit. Get the it from the bit of information.
Right, the bit of information.
Yeah. So now there's a big difference between bit like information and consciousness, of course. But I see these you can see this direction that physics can go where the gulf between the physical and the conscious isn't as great as it seemed to David Hume, thinking about it in the 1700s. Billiard balls, how do you get thought? I mean, it doesn't matter how tiny the balls are and how well trained they are.
Right.
Motion, you're not going to get thought. But if those billiard balls actually turn out to be sort of informational at heart, then so the naturalist, maybe their position has improved over the last 100 years for consciousness. By that Wheeler story.
Well, it's interesting the way that if that were the case, right? If that's the case, like if the atoms had some kind of informational basis and that's the basis of consciousness, and that explained the problem of consciousness, right? It's odd that atoms had to somehow turn into cells and then somehow evolve into human brains before we could actually write this down and make a language out of it. It's weird that if consciousness were that fundamental to reality, even at the level of physical objects and stuff, you would think there'd be other consciousnesses out there. Maybe there are, right? So I don't know, but it is a bit weird. If we're still trying to look at the problem of consciousness, part of the problem of consciousness is that it seems like only animals have it and only humans have it at the level where we're actually able to talk about it and think about it,
But don't angels have it too? Angels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I can explain the problem of consciousness. That's the thing. That's the difference, right? Whereas the naturalist has this problem. And you're right. It's interesting what you're saying, but I would just say I don't think that solves the problem for them. They still have they have a long way to go. If that's the way they're going with it, I would just say they have a long way to go. You know.
No doubt. Yeah, it's definitely not a solution to the problem of consciousness. I do think the problem of consciousness, like my discussion of God's own, bafflement with the fact of consciousness. I mean, I think maybe the problem of consciousness doesn't go away. It doesn't. It's you can chase it back, but ultimately it is this intrinsically mysterious thing, and in that sense, it's going to be a problem for any worldview. Or it's not a problem; it's just a mystery. And in the scientific age, which we're all products of, we don't like mysteries. We want to reduce to a single thing, and we want clarity. And we're philosophical types too, so that's one of our fetishes is fetishes maybe a bit. So, but maybe some people
Isn't
are a
that isn't
little
that part of isn't that? Oh, go ahead.
I I think humans come in all types, and some people are a little happier to sit with mystery than others. Some people need to solve the puzzle and cash it out in true propositions, and others just live with it and dance with it a bit. I'm glad we have
Well,
people who
oh,
want the truth. We all benefit from that. But sorry, you go ahead.
I was just gonna I want to distinguish between like living with mystery and brute fact or just failing to explain something. Whereas that's where I would have a problem with people. If someone just said to me, "Well, we can't explain consciousness, so just deal with it," I would say that that's like you're kind of like it's kind of like it's going against our normal principles of rational thought. In a certain sense. If we
No, you're
believe
right.
in
You're right.
this,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, you're right. That's different. Yeah, it's different.
Mm,
And maybe just thinking of my own case a little bit. Um,
mm,
my if I if I do have this view that consciousness is intrinsically mysterious, and even God might find it mysterious and
mm,
love it and live with it, then I'm no longer acutely concerned about the problem that naturalism might have with consciousness.
mm,
It's like, yeah, if you want a fully worked out naturalism, um, consciousness is something that needs to. You need a good story of that. You need to make that work. And if your naturalism just can't even talk about this thing, you clearly have an incomplete worldview.
mm.
Uh, and you can like a philosophical behaviorist just try to pretend it doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
sorry, that's not going to work. So that's just bad science, and that's incuriosity or doctrinal rigidity. That's all bad. I'm not
Mm,
suggesting we just ignore the problem of consciousness in the focused sense you're talking about.
mm.
But I'm just gesturing to this fact that maybe I shouldn't call it a fact, but my thought that even in theism, consciousness will be mysterious ultimately.
Mm,
It's just that's just in the nature of the thing.
mm.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, man. I think it's different. Wait. The thing is, you're like the difference between the mystery of consciousness for the theist, if there is one, is to say that okay, it's a mystery as to why God has a consciousness. That's some kind of mystery or something like that, or it's some kind of like the mystery of God then, the mystery of why he is the way he is. Okay. But whereas for the naturalists, they're trying to explain it on this level, on the human level.
Mhm.
Whereas so we don't have that problem. That's what I'm saying. That's why we don't or that's why it's not a problem for us.
Maybe to put my point a little more critically than
Mm,
pointedly, the theist might be uh, um, just regressing to God,
mm,
deferring the problem of consciousness to God. So, yes, you have an answer for why we're conscious. It's God did it. And God is already consciousness, necessarily and eternally conscious. Okay, yes, if you start there, then consciousness is not a mystery. I mean, nothing's a mystery, if you grant that. But
no, not nothing. But yeah,
that's not true. That
I mean, those things aren't a mystery. But those, or rather, it's like, again, that's the thing. So whereas saying it's a mystery is kind of a cop out, where you're saying it's a mysterious thing, where it's really what you're saying is that it's a brute fact and we can't explain it. Whereas I'm saying that it's not a brute fact, that there's an explanation for it, which is God, and God is not a brute fact. He's just the terminus of explanation.
That's a brute fact. When you talk about a terminus of explanation is one of the faces of the brute fact. When we're working back toward them in the order of explanation, or in the order.
Well, no, it's different. It's different in the sense that, like, we don't say. I'm not saying that. I'm not just stopping arbitrarily. I'm stopping at this thing which, just according to our understanding of causes and contingency and necessary things and those things, like if we look at the world like of this being contingent and necessary, things are contingent or necessary, and there has to be some kind of necessary being that grounds everything, right? Then yes, that would be the terminus of explanation. That's why it's different than a brute fact. Just saying that this thing, we're just going to stop here arbitrarily at the consciousness or something like that. That's different. That's what I'm suggesting to you. But what do you think?
Yeah. But still, if you say what explains consciousness in our world is that there is this ultimate conscious being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, one advantage of that position over naturalism is your position is clearly consistent with the existence of consciousness. That older billiard ball style of physics, I'm not sure if that picture is even consistent with the existence of consciousness. Well, it doesn't seem to accommodate it in any way.
It doesn't explain it. Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. That's a better way of putting it. It just doesn't explain it, and you've got the logical form of an explanation with the theistic answer, but it feels too easy. If there is an ultimate conscious being, then the thing it creates can easily have consciousness too. That's no mystery, but you just loaded all the mystery into God himself, and then you bow down before him appropriately, right? I mean, that's part of what God is. It's this thing we defer all the mysteries of the world into, or squeeze off all the mysteries of the world into, and then of course we bow down before it. It's like we've loaded all the mysteries into it and placed the burden on it, being the terminus explanation for everything.
That's one way to look at it. I mean, I think it is rational though. I don't think we're just like, oh well, we can't figure it out, so say God did it. What we're saying is that okay, these things don't exist in themselves, so there must be something that explains them or what caused them or what have you.
But they do exist in themselves.
Do they?
Yeah, it's the old regress problem where you're saying this thing that cannot be you actually do think it can be in God. You make an exception for God. And of course, God is by definition exceptional, but again,
it's not that he's an exception. It's not that well, yeah, I guess he's exceptional. It's just that what we're saying is that there can't be an infinite regress because that doesn't explain anything or doesn't cause, or where's the original cause? How is it derived? What's the basis of it? There has to be, at least there must be, just by logic demands that there must be something that originated all these causes and effects, etc., or what have you.
I don't think logic dictates that.
No?
Again, I think the laws of causation are distinct from the laws of logic, and
okay, fair enough. Yeah, but
there's nothing logically contradictory about reality just popping into existence. Conscious from the get-go. it's not logically contradictory. I'm not saying it's likely.
Oh, it's not logically
But,
contradictory, but it's like
yeah.
no, it's like again, we're asking what's the explanation? What's the cause of it, right?
Mhm.
And if you're just gonna say, well, it just happens to be that way, then that's a brute fact. Because the universe doesn't seem to be this thing. We could say that logically it might not exist or it might have been some other way. Whereas God, if there were again, we're just positing this thing, this being, as the terminus of explanation, the terminus of all causes. And we're saying that, okay, if everything requires a cause or something, and there must have been some original cause, then that's what it was. Then this thing was the original cause.
Mhm.
And then we can go into what he is, what he's like, and what all those things about him. But if there was some original cause, then that would explain it, you know? Whereas if we just say the universe is the original cause, then it's like, well, why the universe? Why not something else? Or why should we think the universe couldn't have been or couldn't have
Yeah.
been
But
otherwise, you know?
the advantage
Go
of
ahead.
the universe is it's definitely here as an explanation, whereas God is inferred from what's directly observed. So, I mean, the universe doesn't have to be, maybe. It doesn't seem like it's got the features of a necessary being, but maybe it is, first of all. If we really understood it, we'd see it's necessary. The laws of physics are actually deeply continuous with the laws of logic, and this is just the way reality works out by the laws of logic. Like, logic demands that. I don't know, but I don't. That's
Does it though? Does it? Like, did the laws of
neither.
logic
Might.
demand that, you know?
They might.
Maybe. That'd be, I don't know.
Might.
No one's ever come up with a reason for what. Like,
Yeah.
why would we think that gravity couldn't have been some other way, or the laws of physics couldn't have been something else, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But we know that the laws of logic couldn't have been any other
Yeah.
way, you know?
Yeah. No, that's true. Like, you'd probably have to dig down deeper than the laws of gravity themselves, like to get to the logical core of the physical law. It might be that we really dig down to the ones and zeros of the information of physics. It starts to look a little like binary logic or something. Or
I thought about
I
that
think
before, yeah.
you're thinking in a very different way. Thinking about like archetypal logic, it could be that there's certain archetypal relationships that are as eternal and necessary as math, like the idea of the hero. You know, that's like even if there aren't any heroes, even if there's no world in which a hero can operate, the idea of the hero is there's just a logical idea there of a being who overcomes or struggles and overcomes adversity to achieve some goal of great value. That's an idea which is eternal in some sense. Like it's an idea that has its place in heaven, so to speak, and that's true whether there's a universe or not. It's like a logical truth, and
Yeah,
it
I
could
think
be
it is too, but
yeah,
well, go ahead.
and
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
it could be that it's necessary that good things come into existence. And like value is a weird thing too, and it could be that if something is if like a good idea has just by the nature of its very goodness has some impetus to come into being. Like that's the origin of the universe. That it's these archetypal order incarnating or working itself out. Why? Because it's good that this should happen, and that's what makes it happen. You know, that's the axiarchic or version of the axiarchic argument associated with John Leslie and maybe Plato. John Leslie traces that.
Yeah.
So that would be a case where something like logical or quasi-logical ends up necessarily creating a world.
Goodness and stuff,
Yeah. Good. The power of goodness levers reality into existence. It ought to exist. The world ought to exist, and that's why it exists. That ought.
But then, you know what they're doing when they do that? They're just saying what they're just saying is like they're just asserting that these features of the universe that theists can easily explain, right? It's asserting that they are just the way it is just because. Whereas we have like an actual explanation. Whereas they're just saying, well, it's just that's just the way it is, you know, which is another kind of brute fact of it. Like they're saying, well, you know, we can't really explain why logic would lead to, or why like the universe, like material world, would lead to morality, but maybe it just does, you know, or you know, we're not really sure why logic would lead to a universe, but maybe it just does, you know, and they're just. It's another kind of brute fact explanation where they're not really explaining it, but they're just trying to come up with something. You know, what do you think? Am I
Well,
being ungenerous?
maybe. I think there's a. I mean, from a naturalistic view, you can get pretty far in explaining why a social species would have a system of morality. You know, to
Yeah, but then
sh- yeah.
if you do that, then it's relativist, right? It's like why? Okay, yeah, okay. If that's what you're gonna suggest, is that's the origin of morality, then it's not really morality. It's just like you know some kind of evolutionary thing, right? Or what do you
But
think?
it could also be that morality is objective, and that's just something we also discover using our brains. It's like it's useful and objective, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably more than coincidence that it's both. But those could be two separate things. Just like we were talking at the beginning about how maybe the Jewish and the proto-Jewish people arrived at the infinite true deity through the lever or the ladder of the local war god Yahweh. You know,
Mm.
like so we might arrive at the true morality, or just more primarily the realization that morality is objective and true. We could arrive
Mm.
at that slowly, you know, beginning with just this more practical kind of morality that evolves in monkey politics, you know, over the eons.
But
But
then it would be then it would be like, so what if it were morally, true that humanity needs to die or something like that? Wouldn't that be like, or I don't know, like I feel like what you're suggesting is that morality is both pragmatic and or both evolutionarily like useful and also just the objective truth. Is they're both those things? Is that what you're saying? Morality?
it could be. I think I tend to that view and to both those views, and
Mhm.
it could be analogous to math. I mean, it's useful to be able to count and to add things and to subtract things, and that's very useful. You know, that's engineering, and but
But
it
why
could
is it
also be
the
true.
morality? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It could also be just objectively true, and part of the reason it's useful is it's objectively true. Um, um,
But then, if it was useful evolutionarily, right? Then we would see this type of behavior in the animal world. You know, whereas we do not. We clearly don't. You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you disagree, but we don't. We don't see. We'll see like these animals just eat their young and stuff like that. It's insane what they do, right? So
I mean,
I
humans
think
eat their young too. I mean, humans do terrible
that's
things
true.
to their children too, but it's not the
But we
norm.
know it's wrong. We'll literally say it's wrong. You know, we'll say that
It's not the norm of behavior, and it's not the norm of behavior for
for animals. True.
maternal behavior too. In the end, it's something
Well,
which
no. Well,
human
you'll
stress
see
has
stuff like
changed things.
bears. You see stuff like animals will like kill like little baby bears and stuff, or like things like that. Like really vicious stuff in the animal world. You know, really
Humans
vicious stuff.
humans do very vicious things too. But you're right. There might be a
But we know it's
distinction in
wrong.
there. There could be that distinction. Yeah, that we have there's a certain yeah, we have a cognitively developed system of morality. We might be distinct that way. I'm not saying we're not distinct, but the idea that they do bad things and we don't do these bad things, that's not, you don't want to,
No, no. What I was saying is that they do those bad things. If it was evolutionarily, if the theory of evolution is how things happen, right? Like natural selection and stuff, right? They do those bad things because they're evolutionarily adaptive or something, like they're adaptive or whatever. But whereas If you're
I got
saying that
you. I got you.
morality, you understand what I'm saying? So,
I got you.
like, why
Yeah.
would they do it? Why would they even have those tendencies, right? That's the idea.
Well, I think the evolutionary answer there is adaptation is niche specific, right? It's not that an adaptation like morality will be useful for every niche. It's useful for the human niche, maybe, which means, like for any, you'll see it in something more like it or analogs of moral systems in more social species. In species where, for example, let's stick to the human case. We need to, our own individual thriving depends on getting along well with others. We're highly dependent, first of all, on our parents, and we're not. Some organisms can kind of survive on their own almost the moment they drop out of their mother, and we're not like that. We're a highly social species. Maybe not to the extent that ants are. Maybe more than ants are. I don't know, but and so probably what we think of as a system of morality is most likely going to evolve first of all in highly social species, and so yeah, it's not just going to be a general something generally useful like mobility. It's going to be something that's used to help a tribe coordinate its actions internally for the benefit of all, or for the benefit of the individual ultimately.
Well, this is the thing. If it's beneficial, then what if something happened that created this situation where what was beneficial leads to these moral decision making that we would consider to be horrific, like beyond belief, like such as, for example, it came to the point where it was beneficial for human survival to just like genocide half the population because there's just too many people on Earth or something like that, right? And so,
Dilemmas are dilemmas. We don't get out of the dilemmas. A dilemma is a dilemma. It's a hard situation, and life presents us with these hard situations. Whatever our system of morality is, there's no system of morality that neatly answers every dilemma. So, and I believe morality has some objective basis, but that doesn't erase dilemmas, right? Even if you have a master theory like a utilitarianism or something that you can explain objective morality by, it's not necessarily my theory, but you'll still be presented with dilemmas, meaning, yeah, so.
no, but the theists would say that we don't have the problem because we say God is the ultimate judge. He'll judge things. That the material world, what happens in the material world will be judged ultimately by the judge in the end times, so that there's no that's the objective morality. And so what happens on Earth is not a matter of what's practical, but what he says, or what not even what he says, but what he has revealed to us is morally good. And so that's what we should live by, right? So that's why the idea that morality should be beneficial or practical is not on the board for us, That's why I think our situation is different.
Practical could mean, something very rich. It doesn't just mean profit or something. It can mean what lets us live rich, fulfilled lives as social conscious beings who have compassionate connections to other beings. I mean, it's practical means living well, and of course, from a purely evolutionary perspective, it would ultimately cash out in terms of reproduction or something. But reproduction doesn't just mean,
So they're
yeah,
be
but
practical
reproduction doesn't just mean having lots of babies. Reproduction for social species can mean a form of life that is likely that allows that society to persist and spread. And yeah, it could be that. I mean, we can imagine very horrific societies that spread very well, but no honor among thieves. Also, very vicious groups can easily self-destruct when they turn on each other. So, yeah, it might be that to spread and to sustain, we need to live well, and to live well, we need to live happily to some extent and be good to each other. Dilemmas will still arise, like the Bible, even if it is a revealed document, it won't have specific advice necessarily for every dilemma we could dream up or confront in life. The dilemmas are hard. That's part of life is hard. God would tell you, hey, life's hard. This isn't just a birthday party. It's a difficult place, and part of what makes it difficult is these dilemmas where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Or take
but the difference is that, like, if your goal is practicality, it's hard to define what is practicality. Is that like human flourishing, or is it like, I don't know, like it's hard, even that, what is it, happiness or something, like that would be hard to figure out what that is. Whereas for us, it's like, okay, it's love thy neighbor. So yes, you're right. There's gonna be dilemmas and stuff. So we'll have to kind of think hard about what the real thing to do is, what the right thing to do is. But it's the right thing. It's not what's practical, because what's practical is that I don't know. It's like lots of problems, I think, with this way of thinking about it. What's practical could not be objective. It could be practical for one person and not practical for another, or one group or one, no, not for another. Or I don't know.
I think I agree with you. I mean, I would explain morality's origins, on Earth in terms of its practical function, but hopefully we've transcended that, and we could think about morality a bit more objectively outside of its purely practical function for the group, and arrive at some kind of objective code and try to act by that, even when it seems to go against our interests. If that's where the moral reasoning leads, then so be it. Maybe. I think there are many non-theistic moral people who could do what they think is the right thing, even if it's not in their interests.
Oh yeah, they will. But I would just say for them that they don't have any real basis for whatever they're saying is morality. Like if you're a consequentialist, why not a deontologist? If you're a deontologist, why not a consequentialist? What is the reason? Why should I adopt one view or the other? Or what? There's always going to be these, like you're saying, there's always going to be these dilemmas. For the consequentialist, it's like, okay, well, what if it's really good for most people to just execute a bunch of children in this country? And would that be okay because it's consequentially better for most people, And then if it's deontology, it's like, well, what if it's, you should never do the wrong, you should never lie, you should never do anything wrong. Well, what if by lying I save this person's life? I tell the person with the axe not to kill my my neighbor or something. So they have that problem where they can't figure out what it is. What is the basis of morality, or why should we think this is moral and this isn't? Whereas we don't have that problem.
Philosophy in general might have that problem in that it doesn't have a unified house, but there are individual philosophers who think they have the right position, and they might be right. So it's not a problem for them personally. They think the deontologists are wrong, and maybe they're right. Maybe they're correct in thinking the deontologists are wrong. So you're right. And religion, compared to philosophy, has an analogous disunity in its house on not just the rules of conduct, but on their basis and so on. So,
well, religion does, but theism, I think, has a especially classical theism. It will give you this. We might debate what the actual good right thing to do is, but we have a basis for thinking that this is it. Whereas I think the naturalist or the secularist has a hard time justifying any specific vision of morality.
I do think
you're
displacing or deferring the problem of morality to God again, analogous to the problem of consciousness here. And the Euthyphro dilemma rears its head. It's. I mean,
I don't know about
God's got to be a utilitarian or a deontologist or something too. I mean, there's got to be a theory of morality which is independent of just God's fiat or say so. And
oh yeah. Well, the idea is that he's just The idea is that it's like what we call goodness is just he's the ground of all being, right? He's the necessary ground of all being, so that whatever we call goodness is grounded in him. And so his commandments are good not because not because of the Euthyphro dilemma problem where it's like is because he ordered it that it's good, or is it because he likes it? It's that he just is good, or goodness is grounded in him. And evil is like this perversion of goodness. Evil is not a thing in and of itself, but it's a perversion of goodness,
But then the question seems to me to be, what is this goodness? I mean, you can say God is intrinsically good and goodness is that which aligns with God's nature, but okay, but what specifically in God's nature are we talking about here? It's like we need more
Love.
specific.
It's
Okay, so
love. Love is the basis, basically. Go
now you
ahead.
get into a moral theory, which could, I mean, if it's love, then that could be independent of God. If it's love is God independent, so that could one could proclaim
Nah.
love as the primary ethical principle independent of God too.
No, because the idea is then that God is love. And again, it's like he's the ground of all being, right? So all these things that we think of as love, morality, reason, logic itself, all these things are just things that it's not that he is a mind, but that mind like attitudes and things that logic like things that happen in the universe happen because that's his nature, they just occur because he grounded the universe in that way,
But if love is what's good, then that's what's good, not God. God just might be the exemplar or the ultimate.
He's the ground of love. He's the ground of love. Yeah, the ultimate basis or ground or whatever you want to call it of love.
Might, in fact, I mean, if there is a God, then he is in fact the ground of everything, including love. But love, in theory, could exist without God. Meaning, yeah, love floats free of God, I think, and God might be the most lovable thing and the thing most capable of loving, but God might be the smartest thing too, and doesn't mean that other things can't think.
That's what it is.
You
So
might
it's
think
like,
they can't. You might think they can't think without their grounding in God. I think that's where we were different. But
well, no. The idea is that so yes, you're right. Like love is free. So you're free to love, and you can love whoever you choose or whatever, right? But it's like you wouldn't even. It's like because he wouldn't even exist without him, right? And also the faculty of loving, or the capability of loving, is something that he gave you, and that's the idea of it, right? So,
but that does seem distinct from the question of what grounds morality. Like in principle. Again, as a matter of fact, we might be products of a loving God. That might all be true, but we're asking about what grounds morality, and if it's God's nature, but it's more specifically God's loving quality, then it's love, not God, that is the basis of morality. And we can imagine a possible world if God is
this is no God.
God's not a possible world in which all these ridiculous ifs, but there's a possible world in which we love each other, even though we weren't created by God. And,
well, you know what they say, right? If it's a necessary being, he exists in all possible worlds, right? That's the problem with that idea. Yeah. But the idea is that, I mean, just that the idea is that, like, okay, I guess what I would say is that, like the problem of consciousness, like these other problems, like the problem of contingency, or like these other things, right? Whereas, like, we're not. I know it sounds like we're saying is God's like this brute fact, but it's like he is really this only thing that can possibly provide this final terminus of explanation without resorting to a brute fact. That's the idea of it, What do you think?
Maybe. You might be right. Like I said at the beginning, I don't know. In the end, I'll play these positions, but
Yeah.
and they're not just positions. I don't want to be disingenuous. I do think probably that you can get a lot further from some kind of naturalism to explaining morality than you think. That's clear. But in the end, you might be right. That love and consciousness and meaning and truth and these things just cannot ultimately exist without the Father of Jesus.
Well, hey, that's further down the line, man.
That's God in the abstract. It ultimately is very specific for you. That's part of the power of the Christian story. It's historically specified, So it's
yeah. But I don't want the thing is a lot of people do that. I was talking to these atheists the other day on this call-in show, and they did the same thing to me where I was going for the contingency argument for God, right? And then they're like, "Oh, well, why should we believe it's the God of the Bible or God or whatever?" And I was like, "I didn't even say God yet. I'm just talking about necessary being. I'm trying to get to them to the point of necessary being." And they they refuse to allow me to just proceed through my arguments step by step. They're just immediately said, "Well, why should I? Well, if you're trying to say it can't be the universe can't be necessary. Why should I believe God is necessary?" But I was saying to them, like, look, I'm not saying God yet. I'm just saying there must be a necessary being, and the universe couldn't be it. And I was giving my reasons for why the universe couldn't be it. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. It's interesting that that you went there with that. I'm not trying to say you're being like them. I thought they were being a bit disingenuous, but it's interesting. That's the thought people have that. Well, if it's contingency, then oh, well, why should it be the God of the Bible? Well, I'm not saying it's the God of the Bible yet. I have some other steps to my argument,
For
but
sure.
anyway.
Yeah. No, I get that. I just thought I'd jump a few steps and get right to Jesus.
It's cool.
I think I gotta go, but
you gotta run. Yeah, I know. I realized how long it was going, brother. I'm sorry to. But thanks. It was wonderful talking to you, man.
Really
always,
wonderful talking to you as always. And
yeah, man. I love it.
Worries, but I should get going now, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, it's cool. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on, and everyone. Thanks for coming on, and God bless you. And I don't know any thoughts, any last thing you want to leave the viewers with, Paul?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. Sorry,
Jeff,
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Volume, please, again at 9:25. Was my volume bad again?
Come on, Jeff. Don't be so picky. I'm joking, Jeff.
Must be
maybe it's because he's on the. Is he on the phone? Oh, he's on the phone, eh? There's like some people are on their computer, some people are on their phone. Because you sound good to me. I'm on my computer.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I got my gain up to 10, and my mic's right here. I mean, it should be. I don't think there's anything else I can do. I'm surprised I'm not distorting. But anyway, nice to see you.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, sorry to keep you so long. Yeah. God bless everyone, and thanks for watching Toronto Bible Study.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.